Sorry about that, guys. I'm back. We're on number 7. So number 7 is journaling. And I know that this is something that you hear me say a lot, but that's because it's really powerful. And along with journaling, I want to say researching as much as you can about what you've been through. My videos are great, but there's a lot of books. There's a lot of other people, great coaches and mentors and psychologists who you can listen to online talk about this kind of thing. I like to take everything I've learned and compile it into, present tense and also into my coaching programs, because I feel like I've gotten such an in-depth, I've studied this stuff for like 5 years. So if you're tuning into these videos, that's great. But to take time after listening to videos or reading books and learning more about what you've been through, to actually sit down and write down what really resonated with you, and then journal about why. Reflect on your past, reflect on how you're feeling, and really kind of keep a record. And I'll tell you what's interesting is when I was in my abusive relationship, I spent quite a bit of time, not as much as I really should have, but I spent time writing how I would feel. Sometimes I just did it in my phone, and sometimes I wrote it down. I have looked back on those notes that I made from 5 years ago in those journal entries, and to see that progress is just really sobering, to see what I was in and how I was processing it. It's the same kind of thing now. When we're reflecting, we can go back and see how we're processing it and see what we're learning and see what the patterns are, because this helps us figure out where we need to put more of our attention when we're healing. So journaling, a really, really big one. You guys, when I left, I did not know what I was dealing with. I had no idea. All I knew was I was questioning whether or not I was in an abusive relationship, but I didn't know a thing about narcissism. I came across that maybe a year after I left. I had done so much research that I finally figured out what it was. And then I kept researching and kept researching. So I can give you a list of the books that I read prior to leaving, and then when I first left, and then kind of like the kind of stuff that I've read recently. It's really interesting to look back, and I can tell you the best resources I've come across for this kind of thing. So I'll get back to that in a minute. The last thing, I guess I already kind of did number 8. Number 8, I had written down counseling, psychotherapy, EMDR. Okay, so I combined that, I think, with number 6. Sorry about that. Well, anyway, those are the 8 things. Now, I'm going to give you just a little rundown of books that have helped me. Now, the first book, before I knew what the hell was going on, and I was in marriage counseling for 2 years, and I was in individual counseling all along, but the book that our counselor gave us was called Reptiles in Love. So if you are in a marriage and it's abusive, that is a great book to read, okay? At that time, I didn't know what was going on. After that, I read 2 books in secret. I didn't know what was going on. Remember, the books I read were Emotional Abuse, The Silent Killer of Marriage, and Should I Stay or Should I Go? So see what I was kind of catching on and reading about emotional abuse in order to validate what I already knew, okay? And then Should I Stay or Should I Go? That is an old classic. Even like my parents' generation, that book was around. It's really good. After I left and I figured out what was going on, I'm going to give you the books that have been most amazing that I've read since figuring out that I was in a narcissistic, abusive relationship. The first one, well, there's 3 that are written by Tina Swithin that are good. The first one is Divorcing a Narcissist. Is that the right? Hold on. Yeah, Advice from the Battlefield. Another one is Divorcing a Narcissist, One Mom's Battle, and Rebuilding After the Storm. Those 3 are by Tina Swithin. The two books that have had the most impact on me in my healing. Number one is Rebuilding When Your Relationship Ends. I took a 10-week class surrounding that book as the textbook of the class. It was an in-person class that met for 10 weeks for 3 hours, one night a week. Maybe it was 3.5 hours. I think it was 3.5. And we had a workbook that went with it. That really kickstarted my healing journey. But that book is amazing, and I have bought a copy of that book for every single one of my friends who has gone through a divorce. And the most impactful book since that I have read that is specific to my situation is called The Covert Passive Aggressive Narcissist. That book reinforced everything I already knew was true. So those are a list of fabulous books that will help you feel validated and will help you when you're reflecting and journaling. So I hope that helps. If you are interested and you can't find those books, ask me about, have me just link them in the comments, okay? So if anybody is wanting to know what's that book, I can't find it, I can link it I can link the book in the comments, okay? But do you see that even looking at my book purchase history, I was able to see my path of figuring out, first of all, I was in a trauma bond, leaving the trauma bond, and then the huge important piece of learning about what happened. You know, guys, there are some counselors that will say, there are some coaches who will say it's not important to understand what was wrong with that person. I don't believe that whatsoever. I believe that it is one of the biggest keys to healing is figuring out why it happened, why that person is the way they are. For me, I could not completely, and I'm not completely healed, so let me think of it different. I could not fully embark on my healing journey until I understood and was able to have an explanation for what is wrong with my ex. And I'm so glad that I invested the time to figure it out. So I hope this was helpful. So again, 8 things you can do right now. Guys, I could go into a part 3 with this, but here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna post this, and after you watch it, please let me know if you have any questions or there's anything that you feel I did not address in this introduction to trauma bonding. If there is, I can go ahead and make a 3rd video tomorrow night. So just let me know. I hope this was helpful, and I love you guys, and take care of yourselves, and you are worth your own care and the care of people around you, and concentrate on those who love you and have your best interest in mind, and know that you are worth that. All right. Have a great night. Bye, guys.